Good evening, parents and students. Welcome back. We would have loved to have had our opportunity to meet you live, but unfortunately our government had a much better idea with the COVID to keep us safe. So we really appreciate that. And we've got a great opportunity tonight. The purpose of tonight really came from the idea that we really wanted to make sure that before we have lots of questions posed at us about what the rest of the year looks like, gives us an opportunity to have a look at a roadmap from now until graduation, allow parents an opportunity to see what we're doing in the meantime, how we're supporting students, and how we're coming up with some decisions that are being made in relation to the completion of the year and making sure that it all happens very successfully. So thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate you taking the time. We are recording this so that anyone who misses something, or you'll notice some of the slides have a little bit more wording on it, and in particular we don't want to talk through those big wordy slides, but then there's access for you to see them at a later date and just go through whatever it is. And as always, if you need any further clarification on anything, the people that you see here tonight, you can quickly send them an email about what's going on. So just to get a brief overview of what we're going to be talking about for tonight, I'm going to be talking through the roadmap to the end. What does it look like? What's happening in the meantime? I know if you talk to our students, our Year 12 students, it's miles away. The end is ages and ages away. If you talk to our teachers, we don't have enough time. We're a bit rushed. We've got plenty of things to go. And when we come to our administration staff, we're really thinking, oh, we're running short of time. This is really coming along very quickly. Michael Clark is back. Michael has been acting deputy for Year 11 this year. He's now come back as our head of year. Michael will be talking about the end of year events, formal and graduation, how that all fits together. We're looking at then Mary Vaughan, our guidance officer, will be looking at how we support students with exams. And then Rob Lucas, our head of senior schooling, will go through our academic outcomes, QCE, ATAR, QTAC, and our external exams. So that'll allow us an opportunity, and I'm sure that'll pose some more questions. We have Julie Rowe and Jerome here as well tonight. If you've got any questions that you wanted asked, please feel free to ask a question. If we don't get it through to it tonight, and there's a bit of a theme going, we'll put it back in an email. Michael Clark will actually be sending in an email tomorrow with the link to this recorded session, so that you've got an opportunity to just go back over it again. As I said, so if you want to spend a bit more time and read something in particular, you get an opportunity to do that as well. Okay. If anyone knows me and knows how hard I am about putting artistic stuff together, you can imagine how long this took me today. So if we look over at number one, the first part of tonight that I'll be talking about is really week 1 to 7. I'm going to introduce the practice block exams and final assessment that is going to happen in week 8 and 9. And I've got the dates on the next couple of slides. We'll also talk about term 4, the first 3 weeks, what that looks like. We have an external exam block, which is the second year running of this for this particular system, for the ATAR system. And obviously in our 5th roadmap there is our formal and graduation. So with our milestones, our first date is week 1 to 7. We're still in the middle right now of completing the internal assessment IA3. So I know there's a maths exam next week, a psychology exam next week, and some assignments for biology, film and television are due coming up. So there's still things to be done. Every day that students miss the opportunity to be at school, they're also missing an opportunity just to sort of clarify and mock up things properly for their assessment pieces. Once that's done and they're finished, and they'll finish in about, we call them in our weeks, but I've got the dates on the screen there as well. When we hit week 4 or 5, we've virtually completed assessment and we are in preparation phase for the final external exams. Okay, so Rob Lucas will talk about the mock external exams, or the practice exam block that we've got. He's going to go into a little bit more depth on that and explain why we feel this is really important for all students to do well at this. It's simply a case of the more effort we put into these mock exams, or the students put into the exams, and get a really accurate example of where they're at right now, gives them an opportunity to find what they need to do, rather than go, oh, I didn't really put any effort in, or it was just a practice exam, so I'll just put it to the side there, I'll just go on and do it. There's then too much to learn in a 3-4 week block plus 2 weeks holiday to actually knuckle down into that. So we're really putting the pressure on, or asking students to make this as real as possible, so that the feedback that you get in week 10, in the final week of this term, when the results come back to the students, that we get a fairly accurate what we know and what we don't know. And that will get us through that. The next milestone that we've got is that we've got our external exam preparation for general subjects. These will be regular timetabled lessons in the first 2 weeks when we come back. I'm going to talk briefly about, so okay, my son or daughter doesn't have any external exams. We're on an applied subject list. We'll talk about how the school's catering for this. And remember, this information came from the students last year. I've already had questions around kids and jobs and trying to get in the job market as quickly as they can. So I'll quickly talk about what the school's going to provide, so that every student gets an opportunity for that differentiated learning to occur. In week 3, in term 4, we have what's called a SWAT vac, so a study without teaching vacation. This is that moment where they get an opportunity to sit at home with the books. The school will still be open during this time. Our learning centre near a senior schooling space of the library can be booked up, and students can meet up with other students and have a talk about how that all works. Rob Lucas will be explaining that further later on. The QCE external exam period goes without saying. Rob will also explain that a little bit further. And our 2 major events coming up, our senior formal event and our graduation. Mr. Clark will talk about that shortly. Okay, so just to clarify what attendance looks like as we're going through, I've posed it as a couple of questions. So for those students who have got all general subjects and are doing external exams, those parents, you can switch off for a couple of seconds. And those people who go, okay, I've done all my work, my QCE is all banked, I've ticked off all the boxes. You can apply for attendance, and you go, okay, my son doesn't have anything in 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but needs to come back for formal and graduation. We want them back for the formal and graduation. They can apply through me to get an exemption, attendance exemption, that the principal will sign. And then in those 4 weeks, 5 weeks, that might be a time for people to go and get jobs. Now, this came about fairly early on in the year. We had some conversations with our 12s last year that they would have loved this opportunity. And we've already had, in my conversations with kids, we've had about 8 to 10 kids already ask me if they can, as soon as they're finished and they've handed their last piece of assessment in, and if that's in week 10 this term, can I go and start applying for jobs and getting apprenticeships and things like that? I want to beat the job market. I want to beat those other people so that I can get out there before it all started. Yes, we are more than happy to make this happen for you. We still want you to come back for your formal, and we still want you to come back from your graduation and all the awards events. But we don't want to hold you back from getting, taking a leg up into that sort of market, if that's where you want to go. Other students have asked me, well, what happens if I've got a couple of general subjects and the rest of them are all applied subjects, and I'll only have 2 subjects for the external exams. So you're expected to turn up in week 1 and 2, and you can if you want, you come up for your general subjects only. So there'll be 2 subjects, 3 lines, 6 times during the week. You come to the school and sit in classes with the teacher doing that. The applied subjects will be shut down because it's more about completing. So if students haven't finished jobs or haven't finished some certificate work, they will stay at school in our senior learning space and be catching up on that work, so that we can ensure that every student at the end of this year, by November, will get their QCE. Once again, this will be done through an application with me, and I'm more than happy to come for students just to come, make an appointment, knock on the door and go, hey, this is Mr. Jones, can we start that conversation this week if you'd like? No problem. Okay, thank you very much for your time. This is virtually the lead up to the next big phase of the important stuff. And I'd like to now welcome Mr. Clark to the podium. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Great to be back after a stint in another role here at the school. I wanted a quick segment here this evening just to say hello, but also to encourage you to reach out to me in the coming months. As we know, it's going to be a big few that are ahead of us and a lot of challenges and a lot of great things ahead. So please, any queries, concerns, get in contact with me. Happy to help where I can. I'll jump straight in though about the big two things that I want to talk about this evening, which is graduation and formal. These are quite big events, so I'm going to outline some of the initial details that we have here, but there will be details coming further to those in term 4. First one, the formal. It's going to be taking place on Wednesday, the 17th of November. That's going to be at the Hilton Hotel CBD on Elizabeth Street. Now, start time 6 p.m, 10:30. I do want to thank and do actually a really big thank you to the formal committee. They've been putting in a lot of effort and there's been a range of people involved. So A, thank you to them, and B, look forward to the final products that they have for all of us there on that special night. Graduation is the next big one. That is going to be held on Friday, the 19th. So start time is going to be at 9 p.m. at school here. 8 p.m. So apologies. 9 p.m. Sorry, 9 a.m. here. I apologise. 9 a.m. at school. Families will be invited to the ceremony. Both events are going to be taking place in week 7 of term 4. That'll be just after the external exams are finishing. Now, I'd like to mention that the formal in particular is an invitation and privileged event. The attendance at the formal is based on meeting the minimum benchmarks in our privilege policy. And they're the ones that we've been advertising for a while here. And they're the things around attendance, completion of assessments, effort and behaviour in class, and our school pride. So we're looking to get these done. It's a fantastic opportunity to make sure we can enjoy our end of year in a really good fashion. If you are unsure about whether you're meeting those minimum benchmarks, please talk to myself or Mr. James. Happy to take you through and support you where we can. Now, there has been some communiques been sent out regarding the formal and graduation. I will be sending out more copies tomorrow in an email along with the link to this recording. If you have trouble getting those, please check your junk mail. I've already talked to a few parents who've identified to me, yes, it is going to their junk mail. So please just check that, parents. That'd be fantastic. Overall, I look forward to working with you through the rest of the year. As I said, we have a lot of great things to come, and I look forward to enjoying those things with you and finding our way with our young people. Again, feel free to contact me or Mr. James if you have any queries or concerns. I'm going to hand over to Mrs. Mary Vaughan, our guidance officer here for Year 12s. Thank you very much, guys.
Okay, so good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I just want to talk to you about final year stress, the stress that I'm sure is going on in all of your homes. So according to research, up to 42% of final year Australian students suffer from high levels of stress and anxiety. Students struggle to keep up with the intense workload and put extra pressure on themselves to achieve. Stress puts us in a state of survival. We have that fight or flight response. It distorts our sense of time and can steal our motivation. Relaxation, on the other hand, helps our creativity thrive and supports good study habits because we're then able to use all of our cognitive abilities when we're in a relaxed state. So many of you are experiencing stress and anxiety presently. At this moment in time, November may seem like a lifetime away, but in reality, it is 18 weeks. Your work here will be done then, and you will move on to the next chapter of your lives. In the meantime, as a school, we are really well resourced to support you through this stage. So I've put together my 7 top tips to help you beat stress and thrive through the final months of high school. So the first one, not all stress is bad stress. So the right amount of stress can actually motivate you to be productive and work at your optimal level. So at this point in year 12, it's very normal to be feeling stressed. It's important though for students and parents to recognize when stress is tipped over from being a motivating force to an overwhelming emotion. In this case, you need to take action by doing things you enjoy and help you to reset and refocus your mind. Of course, you're also welcome to come down to Lower E at any time if it will help you to talk through your issues with me. Number two, the 20-minute study rule. So studying for multiple hours straight is not effective. Research shows that when we study in 20-minute bursts, it is best for the human brain because it can store information effectively. We have short repeated sessions. Between these chunks, take a 5-minute break, step away from your study area. Use this time constructively to deal with getting maybe a bit of fresh air or taking a quick walk. Basically do something that will allow you to return to your books energized. Taking regular breaks is number 3. So taking planned and timed breaks will help you to remain on task. Use your time wisely, try to avoid distractions, and in particular, avoid checking your socials every 5 minutes. If you can't beat the urge to check your phone, consider leaving it in a different room or maybe even switching it off completely. It can take up to 20 minutes to refocus on a task once you have been distracted. Therefore, I suggest that you avoid distractions by setting yourself a realistic study plan so that you make the best of your time and, importantly, exercise your willpower. Make sure your study plan is balanced with other important things in your life. That way it will be easier to stick to it. Number 4 is to say it out loud. The best way to really remember and learn is to talk about what you're learning out loud without using any notes. This is known in the field of psychology research as the production effect. There's a very definite improvement in explicit memory for words that are produced aloud during study in comparison to words that are just read silently. Information seems to be processed more effectively and it seems to just sink in better. So find yourself a study buddy, or maybe even try explaining something that you've been learning to a family member, and that should help you embed the information in your brain. Number 5 is food for thought. So on an average day, about 1/3 of students skip breakfast. This can have serious repercussions for year 12 students, in particular when you're trying to study and retain information. So eating a healthy, balanced diet and staying hydrated will ensure that you're better able to retain focus and concentration. So fill up on good foods and drink plenty of water to give your body and brain all the power it needs to function well whilst you're studying and going into exams. Number 6 is keep up exercise. The natural reaction would be to cut out all exercise and social interaction whenever you're short in time and you want to start studying and in your study blocks. Please don't, because exercise is great for your physical and mental health. Benefits of exercise include improved memory, longer attention span, and better decision making, all of which support good study habits. Exercising can be an opportunity to socialize and engage with others too, which is likely to improve your well-being and help you feel supported. Number 7, get adequate sleep. All teenagers need between 8 and 9 hours of sleep each night if their brains are to function at their optimum level. If you get a good night's sleep before your exam, you're scientifically proven to retain more of what you studied the day before than if you stay up late. The final thing that I want to touch on is part-time jobs. So it's not one of the top tips, but I'm all for having a part-time job and for the independence that gives the students. But I think that we just need to be mindful at this time about getting the balance right, about not impeding on time when students should be preparing and should be feeling ready for their exams. So maybe consider cutting back on the hours that you're working or putting your part-time job on hold if that's an option. My final point is exam block. Sorry. So when it arrives, the IA4 exam block, it's important to stay calm. Setting some time aside to do some fun things will help you relax and recharge between exams. Maintain connection with your support network, both within and outside of school. Know that we all want to help you and support you to reach your potential, whatever that may be. Most importantly, remember that you're not defined by your performance on any one day, and that we all take different paths through life, and that in the end up, you will get exactly where you need to be. So with that, I am going to hand over to Mr. Rob Lucas.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And students, thanks for joining us this evening, understanding that it is Origin night and that everyone's been busy. It's a shame we couldn't meet together face to face. This Zoom interaction is quite difficult, and would have been a pleasure to meet you all. So I'm going to give an overview about what the rest of the year looks like academically. And hopefully provide some reassurance around some performance of students or the cohort and what the rest of the year looks like on that front. So first, I'd like to let you know how the students are going. So at the moment, I'd also like to clarify what Richard James said. A vast majority of our subjects already have completed the final internal assessment. It is only in subjects that require a lot more practical class time to get some work finalised. And we find that happens in the sciences and a lot of the arts subjects and some of the technology. So over the next by about 2 weeks, beginning of week 3, every subject, general subject, will have completed the final internal assessment item. And so it is a little bit of a push for some students over the next couple of weeks. But once that occurs, they're going to get the opportunity to take a big deep breath and reduce their work schedule over a week, 2 weeks here at school and at home, hopefully, get some balance, get some energy, and start their progression and build towards the mock external exams. At this point in time, we're very, very happy with the progress that students are towards the QCE. And at this early stage, everyone is on track to meet the QCE attainment. We have made contact with parents and students along the way that at some point in time we had some concerns for, and that work's been done and those programs have been implemented. So we're confident that some students are progressing very, very well for that. Just at the end of Unit 3, for those ATAR bound students, we did do an ATAR prediction. And we are quite pleased. We're very happy, and the students have done a mountain of work and should be commended for the position they put themselves in to that point in time. So the average is an 84.2 of the entire cohort, especially only those that are going for the ATAR. And then we have almost 50% of our cohort, ATAR cohort, are at 90 or above. So we're at this early stage. We know there's a lot of water to go under the bridge, but we are very pleased with that. And the students should be very pleased with the position that they've put themselves in for, with the last remaining stretch coming up for them. So well done to all of our students on getting themselves in a position to get their QCE, and as well as those ones that are wishing to go for tertiary entrance, the position they're putting in to get their desired courses. There's been some great work happening there. So I just wanted to talk through with you in and around the student portal. It's called MyQCE, and this is where students will be able to gain access to their learning account. And in their learning account is their results, how they're tracking for their QCE, their external exam timetable. They can access syllabuses, they can access past papers. So if a student, they all should have, it's been mentioned to them on a number of occasions, but if they've had access issues, they need to come and see me to sort that out. Just letting you know that their student results will be released through their MyQCE, their learning account, towards the middle of December is when they'll receive those. They'll need to go into that portal to receive their senior certificates, their QCE, a senior statement, and their raw results for their subjects. Between now and the end of the year, the sooner the better. Students should access their account and just roll over the email address, if they haven't already, to a personal one. At the end of the year, at a date I'm just not quite sure, pretty soon, I think some of their learning accounts, the school-based email addresses and access starts to be shut off. So they really need to ensure they've got a personal email address for any communication from QCAA moving forward. If they need help with that, once again, they can come visit me and we can sit down and show them how it's done. So on the QCE attainment, this is what it looks like. This information has been shared before. The students need to submit all assessment. There's a requirement for the QCE around this concept of completed core requirements. And the QCAA have informed school or informed students, informed everyone else as part of their requirements that completed core is a certificate 2 or above, or any general and applied subject. If a student does not meet 12 completed core points, they will not get their QCE. To get the completed core, they need to complete the VET qualification at a certificate 2 or above, or they need to complete all units for applied and general and exit that subject at C or better. So it's important that as we progress forward, that we've met that requirement. Now, we've contacted any student that we think is borderline with that requirement at this point in time. So we need to keep tracking that. If you're unaware, we've tracked students through year 11 and 12 and make contact at different junctures to support their attainment of that. In order for that to occur, students need to attend their external exams. And they need to, if they have one, so general subjects will have the external exams, applied subjects will not. They need to attend those exams. If they fail to do that, then that's going to be incompleted, that subject, and they will not meet the completed core. At the end of term 3, from a school aspect, all applied subjects will be completed. If a student is not going to get their QCE on the basis of their results in applied subjects, they may have failed 1 or 2, and that's affected their QCE. They'll be returning in term 4 to provide some support to achieve that. So they're not going to be affected by that. We would prefer that every student completed that by the end of term 3, so they can access the opportunity to head off into work or further study external to the school, particularly if they have no general subjects. Obviously, that application is through Mr. Richard James. A little bit of a gap in what the vocational education world does and what schools do is that we may have students that have completed all their studies here at school, but have not completed an external VET offering through TAFE or another registered training organisation. QCAA has a final cut-off the second week in November. RTOs, like TAFE, they have their own timetable and schedule of when things are to be due. So therefore, it may be a situation where we have students who finish their school requirement here and still have to go to TAFE and finish their TAFE requirement. Unfortunately, in the world that is VET, we don't necessarily get all the contact from VET, from training providers through to family, through to the student. So we miss out on information to support that process. So it's really important that once a student has sort of finished their requirement here, and with some of the students we don't see a lot of, that they continue to meet the requirements of the training provider. It's a couple of weeks turnaround from training providers to mark, assess, maybe make communication back for resits. So I'm suggesting that by the end of October, there's a typo on that screen, my apologies. By the end of October, all VET is finalised. A training provider will then provide the results to the government, to the Department of Small Business and Training, and they will upload those results to QCAA, and there's a bit of a lag in that. So the sooner that the certificate qualifications are completed, the easier everyone can breathe. The last final bit is just ensuring that we're passing, and ensuring we're doing our best to do that, and no doubt everyone is. If you have any questions about that, I'm free to meet. Inside the My QCE, students have the ability to do an QCE eligibility calculation. Just there's extreme caution with that. The My QCE QCAA calculation is assuming that students are passing everything, and that may or may not be the case. For a more refined and defined outcome, students need to make an appointment to come and see me, and we can give the latest and greatest results to them and put that into a calculation and see where they're tracking. So please use that facility, that tool provided in the student portal through My QCE and QCAA with a little bit of caution. I've spoken to this before. Any students already had a conversation with myself and Mr. James. That tracking continues and is ongoing to provide support around that. Our goals are to ensure that students have a qualification or a pathway leaving school, and the QC is their first step along that pathway. So ensuring they get their first qualification is going to hold them hopefully in good stead for what is to face them as they have left the school. Just a bit of information, just what we're doing to support what happens next year. Over this term, during the Thursdays apps classes, we have a number of external providers coming into the school to talk to the students. So we have, for instance, tomorrow, we have Griffith University coming in to talk to the cohort. Over the coming weeks, we have QTAC, which will be an important one, QUT, University of Queensland, TAFE. There's a little bit of a gap. We're trying to find someone to come into to talk to the students. They get to the end of the year and next year, maybe they received results that they weren't happy about, or allow them to move into a pathway. Maybe there's been a change of mind, or they just don't know. We're trying to provide someone to come in to talk to them about what is possible. If you're unaware, TAFE offers year 13, they call it, fee-free training in some courses. So there'll be some information coming to students about that. In the next newsletter, the National Careers Institute has provided some resources to schools, and there's also, I think, a minimum of one, maybe two, teleconferencing and counselling to help students with where and what and how and why, where should I go with my career, and what's available to me. So keep an eye out for the next newsletter for that, and watch this space for our presenter to provide some information about what can happen for students next year once school has ended if they have not found themselves in their preferred pathway. Just a plug. Usually we get lots of information around this, but this weekend is the Tertiary Expo. It's a free event that's at the RNA Showgrounds. If you go and do a quick Google search for the Tertiary Expo, I would suggest that it'd be worthwhile as we start to get more pointed towards the end of the year, that students and possibly parents have gone in to chat to a few people, chat to universities, chat to faculties, chat to employers, work and skills. You don't just have to be going to university to access this, and find out what's available to them, what might pique their interest as it comes to tertiary applications towards the end of the year. And if it's not tertiary, then other study. Not everything ends in university. A lot of quality vocational education and training courses out there. They will also set students on a career path of their desires. If I come across any free it's all free anyway. We used to have free passes, but you don't need them anymore. So please feel free to go on Google. Hopefully I'll see you out there. I just want to talk about probably more now that students who have general subjects. So if anyone is applied subjects, the next little bit of time just might not be relevant to you. So thanks for joining us. If you no longer wish to hear that, if you do, please stick around. For any student that is in a general subject, this information is important. To help prepare for the external exams in term 4, we are undertaking a mock exam block, in essence a QCE trial, and that's going to occur later this term in weeks 8 and 9. What we found on feedback last year was that some students utilised this well, some students took a different view and didn't utilise the opportunity that presented as well as other students. So what we found last year was that students who went to this exam block, the mock block that we're calling it, and they said, this is just an opportunity to find out what I know and do not know. The feedback and follow-up was that they struggled and were highly stressed, highly anxious, highly agitated, moving on past that point in preparation for external exams, trying to cram in a syllabus worth of contents and ways of working and cognitions in preparation for the external exams. So it's our strong advice that students should approach this mock exam block like their life depends upon it, even though we know it's not. To treat it like it's the final event. So then at that point in time, they're going to receive a more pointed and direct feedback. It is probably not a great use of time if students study the stuff they know and know well. At that point in time, students will get some information and some feedback about what are some areas that they can improve on. And then hopefully after that, it is our hope that students will be a bit more pointed with their time, with their study, and hopefully allowing them to operate and to prepare for the term 4 external exam blocks in a much better frame of mind, in a much more comfortable position, instead of a bit frantic, agitated, anxious, trying to study too much. And then hopefully the energy levels will be up for the final exam block. So they should prepare as if this was the final exam block, not an experiment to find out what they do and do not know. We're going to do some work with some students, with all the students that are sitting in general exams in and around how to study. So a study guide is going to be made available and the schedule is going to be released middle of term. The study guide is based upon some empirical research that's been peer reviewed and published. So we're confident that is good advice on how students should be studying for these exams. This document's been made available to the students in year 11, but as we deal with young adults, not necessarily they've all taken notice of it. So the external exam block, in term 4. For some subjects, maths and science based, 50% of their exit grade comes from those exams. All other subjects, it's 25%. The schedule was released by QCAA at the beginning of last term, or the middle of last term also. And this is available to the students through the MyQCE, their learning account. And they'll get the timetable of what the 3.5 weeks looks like. This year, on the basis of feedback last year, QCAA has adjusted the schedule to allow for a more consistent load of exams for a greater variety of students. It takes a long time to put this exam block together by the QCAA on the basis of what schools and what students study subjects across the state. So in your planning, just make sure that you're well rested, you're eating, and because taking exams is going to, as you probably already found out, is going to sap a lot of your energy, and you're probably going to be tired post those exams, which is perfectly normal. Just to make sure you're not in a heightened state before you turn up for the exams, just make sure you get a little bit early. We had students last year meditate. They got here early. They didn't want to interact with others. They meditated. Other students liked the social interaction. So there's whatever the individual requires around that. I forgot to mention earlier that we try and reenact the flow or the order of exams in our mock block at the end of term 3. But taking 17 days of exams and fitting you into 10 days just doesn't quite work out. So we're going to try and do our best to replicate the order, but it's not going to be precise and completely replicate what they'll be facing later on. Later this term, the students really need to be all over what the guidelines are for the external exam that QCAA does for the schools, and will be providing to students in enough time to ensure that they can read it and adhere to it. It'd be good practice that they're adhering to those guidelines for the mock block. So if they don't arrive in enough time, we will supply them, the students, with last year's requirements. Please note that some exams are going to require their own technology in the essence of calculators, graphics calculators, and all their laptops to play multimedia vision and files in some art subjects in particular. Hopefully I have the schedule out for that later on. So what happens with student outcomes at the end of the year? If you're unaware, there's two groups or two authorities that supply different sets of data. The QCAA take students' raw scores, so their score out of 100 in their general subjects, or their score A to E in applied subjects, or their achieved or their competency achieved in some vet subjects. They then send that information to QTAC. And if you're unsure, that's the Queensland Tertiary Admissions Centre, and they're responsible and funded by the universities. And the QTAC then take that information and calculate the ATAR. So schools aren't responsible. So the QCAA and schools aren't responsible for that data. So it's important to know as we move forward. On the 5th of August, applications for QTAC do open, and we've just received today QTAC guides for courses for 2022, and next week we will provide those to students at the end of their QTAC session to hopefully then they can not be distracted through the presentation, have a bit of understanding about what they was talking about. At the same time, they apply to university for tertiary placements and preferences, they also need to apply to they also need to apply to QTAC, too many acronyms, for an ATAR. If they don't do that, they will not receive one. So if any student that is ATAR eligible and wishes to receive one and go to university, they need to make 2 applications to QTAC after they create a login. There'll be information from the school to students in and around that. There is no rush to ensure that they're going to get a place. It only opens on the 5th. At the QTAC discussion next week, we're going to hopefully be talking about how to preference orders. What does it mean for last year, there's been a big push towards early offers and direct access programs from universities, all fighting for market share with this new change. So every university has their own direct access points as well as what they're going to take for early offers. Over the coming weeks, we will advertise via email, and most universities are already advertising on their website. They're running like virtual open days due to COVID, or some are going with complete open days. So we will push that information, and most of those are on the weekends. If you find the time and you're looking for a bit of space and a bit of a break, go along, walk around some campuses, get a feel for it, talk to a few people from some of the faculties at university level, and find out a bit more information for yourselves. New for 2022, students that are exiting and wishing to go on to university will need to create and generate a unique student identifier as a requirement for that. The link is at the end. Historically, that's only been relevant to any vet student, but the directive has come from the government and universities that moving forward, any student going to university will require that number, and that's easily to generate, and we'll have that link for you on the final slides. And there they are. I've hoped you'll be able to gain access to these links inside the presentation be forwarded by Michael Clark tomorrow, and a recording of this vision of this presentation. So I hope you've got enough information to feel like you've been informed for the rest of the year. You know what's coming up. Once again, I reiterate that we're very, very proud of the work that's been done so far by the students throughout the year. We have our fingers crossed that we get through the rest of the year and everyone's in a good place. We want energy levels to be ready for external exams. There's an opportunity to take a big deep breath in a couple of weeks in some more subjects, where hopefully we can gain stock and restock our energy levels, just ensuring that we can maintain a bit of focus towards the end of the year. Even though it is a long way away, it's going to turn up pretty quick. But at any stage, at any point in time, the door's always open. I appreciate and enjoy having chats with students and parents about their child. Just get clarification very quick. We're going to answer any questions. Okay. So I think a lot of questions have been answered so far. But once again, the door's always open. So if you'd like to take the opportunity, feel free to make contact, and hopefully we can help you as best we can. So thanks for your time tonight. Plenty of time to get into the football, the pizzas and hot dogs and everything else. Enjoy your night. Thank you.